this video from Senator Lummis talking about how we can actually cut our debt in half in 20 years by adopting Bitcoin and then holding it in a strategic reserve. Now, the reason I'm talking about Bitcoin, if you're new around here, is because Bitcoin is the mothership in terms of crypto. When we look at the total market cap or money in Bitcoin, this is the money among everyone. And the way that it works is if you were to multiply, we'll go back, the circulating supply by the current price, that would bring you up to a total of $1.9 trillion. The next closest competitor for money in the space is Ethereum at 326 billion, and then ranking in at number 3 on today's price action, always bouncing between number 3 and 4 depending on whether there's sell pressure or buy pressure, is XRP sitting at $144 billion. Now, Bitcoin needs to rise in order to create for a positive economic environment for the rest of the crypto market. In other words, if Bitcoin is doing poorly, then everything else will. On the flip side, if Bitcoin is in a positive momentum zone, then that leaves room for everything else to do well as well. And the reason for that is because a rising tide raises all ships. I've been in this market for 3 separate bear and bull cycles now, and I can assure you that in a bear market, when Bitcoin starts to dump, typically everything else dumps even harder. And on the flip side, you'll actually see better percentage returns on lower market cap cryptos, and typically even XRP into this bull market cycle, considering we're finally going to get some regulatory clarity and the SEC case is likely out the window. Now, really quickly, we're going to talk about, or better yet, share this video from Senator Cynthia Lummis, Bitcoin mom, talking about why we should adopt the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Standard, where our government essentially buys and holds Bitcoin like they do with oil and gold. Let's have a listen.
So why Bitcoin would make sense as part of our strategic reserves is that we recognize other long-term stores of value and put them in strategic reserve. We have a gold strategic reserve. We have an oil strategic reserve. I think it is fitting that Bitcoin, now that is really digital gold, be included among our reserve assets. So I'm proposing in the Bitcoin Act that we purchase roughly 200,000 Bitcoin a year just by converting money we already have into Bitcoin and hold them for 20 years. If we did that with, say, 5% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist, which is roughly 1 million Bitcoin, we could cut our debt in half in 20 years. And in the meantime, we would have an asset that's growing in value while our own dollar is decreasing in value. And thereby we could shore up the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. What that does is help us protect ourselves against inflation and protect the US dollar on the world stage.
Now, think about what she just said. If we adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset and hold about 5% of all the Bitcoin, we could cut our debt in half in 20 years. And I think it could happen even sooner. Now, many people say, well, it's not just going to be Bitcoin in a strategic reserve, but you're also going to have other digital assets. And although that is possible and would likely be more bullish for assets like XRP, Ethereum, Solana, all of the major leaders in the crypto space, I would argue it still does not have to happen to create a very positive environment for all cryptos to still outperform everything else in the TradFi market. What that means is if Bitcoin continues to rise in price because of a supply and demand type of a situation where the supply continues to get squeezed and demand continues to rise because other nation states are trying to adopt and buy Bitcoin to follow the state's lead, and Bitcoin then goes into the many millions of dollars, well, you can bet your arse that XRP and all the other cryptos are going to rally really hard as well. And to add to that bullishness, it's not just the Fed that wants to buy and hold Bitcoin. States are also doing this. We have Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Wyoming, Texas, Pennsylvania, you name it. And even Florida wants to adopt 10% of their GDP in terms of Bitcoin, which is a massive number for a state. And many of these states, like Florida and Texas, have some of the world's largest economies. These economies are larger than many nations all throughout Europe. And when you're talking just Texas alone, it is the 8th largest economy in the world, and that is one state inside of the United States. But if all of these states start to adopt and hold Bitcoin, then it is very likely that they're also going to adopt and hold other assets as well. And that would likely include XRP once we are in the clear with this SEC case and potentially have a spot ETF somewhere in the mid-year to the end of the year. The moment y'all been waiting for, this interview with David Schwartz about whether or not he is Satoshi Nakamoto or knows who it is. Let's take a listen.
I'm serious.
I wish, man.
I came up with the most perfect synopsis. Get this on video. You actually put a patent on blockchain technology in 1980, correct?
I mean, it's. I don't know how close.
I'm going to tell you the story, and then I want to see your reaction and your expression and your body language. Okay, check this out. 1988, you put the blockchain technology back in 2000 or something like that. You go to work for a car firm, am I correct?
No, I mean, I did. I spent some time consulting for the NSA in 2000.
Okay.
2011.
And what happens in 2007, 2008, we have a housing bubble, right? And in 2009, you're still there. Bitcoin is born. Bitcoin doesn't work. It's too slow. It's too cumbersome. And then the only guy that can fix Bitcoin is Satoshi Nakamoto, aka XRP.
Yeah.
No?
Well, so there's one problem with that, which is if you look at the original Bitcoin source code,
Right.
It has a user interface implemented in Qt. I don't know Qt. So you have to add at least one other person.
We have resources.
Yeah, you have to add at least one other person to make it plausible.
Okay, but you might be the main guy.
It's not impossible. It's not true.
I got it on video.
I have the skill set to do it.
Awesome.
But I didn't discover Bitcoin until 2011. I wish I had. Believe me, I'd be what? How much is Satoshi's Bitcoin worth?
63. What is it? How much is it?
How many million Bitcoin do people think he has?
21 million.
Okay. 1 million. Somewhere between 1 and 2 million, right? Depending on how much of the early money you think was him.
Right.
So that's what?
No, 19.
$50 billion?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, at the peak.
So folks, it doesn't sound like he is admitting to the fact that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, although many people might watch this video and say, well, he's maybe hinting at the fact that he knows, and that might actually be true. But then he mentions that he would have actually bought and held Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has not moved in the Satoshi Nakamoto wallet since 2014. Now, he says he didn't find out about Bitcoin until 2011. So even then, think about the amount of fortitude, patience, and self-control you would have to never sell or move a single Bitcoin since 2014, when it really wasn't worth that much to begin with and is now worth too much. Either way, it's safe to say that David Schwartz is quite well off in his own right, considering the fact that he owns a boatload of XRP. Although I'm not too sure how much he owns, I know he holds quite a bit. And insiders apparently know something, because the trading volume on Coinbase soared 9,640% just the other day. And apparently it's because traders are positioning themselves in the market now that we've experienced a dump, a bit of a sell-off, and things are actually looking quite bullish now if you take a look at the price action and chart.